Today we're just going to do one more thing in the administrative section and then quickly dive over to have a look at some of the finance interface. But what we're going to do now is just enter an additional charge to a member. That member is going to be me, and we're just going to assume that I've walked into the club and I've purchased a roll of wing tape to put on my aircraft. You'll find there's a product in the product file for wing tape which automatically codes it to the nominal code for flight accessories. Put a quantity of 1 in, it pulls the price down and calculates the charge for me. All I'm going to do now is quickly go to my account, type in my name in the search bar at the top, and we're going to click on the find, edit my record, very quickly go to the financial tab, and you'll see that the roll of wing tape is already there, charged to my account, along with the line below, which happens to be the flight number from the session we did in part 1. Now I'm just going to pull the sidebar out, and then we're going to very quickly click on the finance menu item, and that will take us over to a completely different interface. This is the interface that's seen by the treasurer and all the other financial officers of the club. As far as the finance section is concerned, there are quite a lot of reports that you can run, and we are going to make this the subject of a separate in-depth tutorial. For now, we're just going to be concentrating on those items that show the transactions that we undertook in part 1 and the early part of part 2. So we're going, for instance, to look at the daybook, and you'll immediately see that all the transactions, including the visitor flight payments and the wing tape, are all in there, and that's exactly the same as a daybook in QuickBooks or Sage or any of the other packages. What we're going to do now is isolate the member sales, and again you'll see the 2 transactions that took place for me, and we can see quickly that they're correctly coded to the right nominal codes. And what all this means in practice is that with the system automating most of the processes of a busy gliding club, there's very little for the treasurer to do except maybe keep a watchful eye on things to make sure everything is being correctly coded. Let's take a look at one of the more important reports in the administrative section, and that's the overdue account balances. As this is live DLGC data, I've hidden the names to protect the guilty. I should also add that emails go out automatically to all those members with overdue accounts, thus relieving the administrator of that painful task. Now we're going to look at some of the instructor menu items. Instructors get their own bunch of reports, and the ones we're going to particularly look at are the infrequent flyer report, and then we'll look at a bunch of graphs. On this screen we determine what constitutes an infrequent flyer. We're going to specify a period of time, and in this case we're going to select a 3-month period, and then we're going to say that if a pilot flies 3 flights or less within that period, then he's deemed to be an infrequent flyer. We're also going to select a DLG white card color, because early solo pilots are the one area in the club where we tend to lose pilots the most and fairly quickly. Whether it's the frustration with their progress after solo, we're not sure, but we do need to get alongside them. You'll see that I can instantly drill down into an individual member, take a look at their logbooks and see how they progressed, who they've flown with, what kind of times they've been getting in the air, and just generally arm ourselves with the information before we try and get alongside the pilot and mentor them. Now we're going to take a look at some graphs. They're fairly self-explanatory, so I'm going to stop talking in a minute. We're going to show a 1-year view, and suffice to say, you've got a very large monitor, like a 27-inch. You can actually get 2 years across the screen, so you can do comparisons year on year. This next report is probably the most powerful report in the system. It's called flights between two dates, but you can put quite a lot of different parameters in here. You can analyze flights over a given period, either for an aircraft, for the whole fleet, for an individual pilot, or you can key in the special code of 999 and find out all the visitor flights. You can also specify a visitor flights for a particular aircraft, for instance, which is exactly what we're going to do now. This is particularly useful for finding out whether a particular aircraft in the fleet is earning its keep or not. Because we fly all the year round at Camp Hill, sometimes in the winter it's worth taking one of our aircraft off air cover and just putting it on ground cover as far as insurance purposes is concerned. Just one of the ways that we can save money using this report. This next report shows how the aircraft maintenance crews can interrogate an individual aircraft, find out when the ARC renewals are or the CFAs are due, and also the number of hours that an aircraft has done since the last maintenance check. In a later release, we're going to put another automated scheduled email in place so that the maintenance crews will be alerted when an aircraft is approaching 50 hours. Now, while we're in the live DLG system, I'm going to very quickly go back into the finance section and show you a report that I couldn't actually show you using the limited test data available. And that's one of the QuickBooks reports. And as far as the treasurer is concerned, this is probably only one of two reports that you will ever have to run. And at the end of each particular period, you simply run this report and transfer the figures over into QuickBooks. Nothing could be simpler, nothing could be more, what's the word I'm looking for, more saving of time than this particular report. All you have to do is transfer these numbers into QuickBooks and your job is done. Now, I am at some point soon planning to automate the transfer process into Sage Accounting. We ourselves use QuickBooks at the moment, but it's quite a dead product in the UK. So the pressure is on for me really to do it into Sage, but not QuickBooks. But we'll take a look at that at a later stage, and perhaps your guys and myself can talk about that at some point in the future. Now, during these Whistlestop tours, we've looked at the smartphone and the tablet interfaces for the members. Now we're looking at the main PC and laptop interface. The login screen shows your account balance, when your next currency check flight is due, when your next duties are due. There are facilities for organising a swap on there. On the left-hand side at the bottom, you'll see a summary of your account, and at the top there's what we call the whiteboard, which essentially is a list of jobs that require doing around the club. And the section of the screen which is mainly in the center at the bottom is a fluid area, so as you click on list items on the left, you'll find that bottom section in the center of the screen will change and put more detailed information in, for instance about one of the financial transactions. Members can also take a look at the diary and get the same view as the administrators see, except that you can't change anything, you can only look at things. You can also see your own personal logbook. This shows both P1 and P2 flights all in one list. You can drill down and look at the individual flights. You can take a look at the jobs in more detail that they're doing around the club. Click on the detail and find out who's in charge of the job, and email them where necessary if you feel you can volunteer. And then we have a fairly new section, which is the location map, which we're actually feeding into a fairly new experimental part of Google called Google Fusion Tables. This will put the members on a map. If you click on a little dot, you'll be able to pull up information about the member. So if you need a lift, for instance, then you can use this facility, and if you're using a Mac particularly, you can dial straight off the screen. Under the My Stuff menu item, you'll find My Details, which will pull up immediately everything about you. A lot of the stuff that you can change, for instance, like your passwords, or if you change telephone numbers or email addresses, or any part of your contact details. A lot of the stuff, obviously, you can't change because it's generated within the system, like, for instance, the date that you last flew, your flying cards, colours, etc. They need to be changed by the administrator, otherwise all hell would break loose within a club. I'm just going to let this run through now so you can see all the different bits of information that are available within the system. So we're going to have to leave it there now because we're running out of YouTube time. There's lots more to see in the members admin, including the all-important daily flying planner. So we're going to make that the subject of another more in-depth tutorial very, very soon. Please join me in part 3 in a couple of days, and we'll look forward to seeing you and hearing from you all then.